National Fire Radio.
And we're back for another week on the National Fire Radio podcast. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but this week, the week of May 22nd, 2023, it's Terry's birthday. My wife, Mrs. National Fire Radio. She'll probably hate that I even said that, but she doesn't listen to this anyway. So I'm taking that day and enjoying time with her. She deserves it. She puts up with all my crap, all my travel, and all the podcasts we do and everything else in between. So I am spending the day with her, rightfully so. But this week is all new episodes with fantastic guests, including a new episode from Pip from the Size Up. So hang on this week. We appreciate the support. Like, share, subscribe on the channels in which you listen. We appreciate the support. And as you fill out, subscribe or share or leave some comments, it helps us in the ratings. And, of course, ratings help push us up the line and get more followers and listeners. And we appreciate all of that. And that's how we build a community. So we appreciate you being here with us. Please give my sponsors and the people that trust us with their message a few minutes of your time before we roll into the daily episode. Thanks for tuning in. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Hey guys, before we start the podcast, real quick, I want to mention the Gone to Texas Fire Forum and Expo being held in Arlington, Texas on June 9th and 10th. Myself, I'm going to be emceeing the event for 2 days with nationally renowned speakers that will be there for the weekend. Mo Davis, Clyde Gordon, Rick George, Mickey Farrell, Jacob Johnson, Dennis Riley, and so on. The list goes on and on. I was there last year, helped MC the event last year. It is a growing conference in an incredible venue. Globe Life Field, which is home to the Texas Rangers in Arlington, Texas, right in the entertainment district, right at the PBR bar, which we're going to have a social after the first night. I'm telling you right now, there's no other venue like this. The room actually overlooks the field. You get to walk the stadium. It is such a cool venue. Arlington, Texas, June 9th and 10th. Check them out. Go on to TexasFireForum.com. Or go to Facebook and look them up there, too. Go on the Texas Fire Forum where you can buy your tickets, get great hotel rates. And if anybody's asking you where you're going this summer, you tell them, go on to Texas. This episode's brought to you by Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his crew at Taylor's Tins have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017. With over 200,000 tins in the market, they are a leader in the helmet front space. Custom design, one-offs to department orders, they can turn them around within 24 to 48 hours. Customer service is what they pride themselves on, and they provide nothing but top-shelf product and service to their customers. Check them out at taylorstins.com and check out their full line of product offering. They've always been a very strong supporter since day one with the National Fire Radio podcast and platform, and Taylor and his crew have become dear friends of ours, and we appreciate the support. And at checkout, for a little extra bonus, use coupon code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for a discount on your order. Exclusions do apply. Anyway, check out TaylorsTins.com for the latest and greatest offerings from Taylor and his crew. And in the words of Taylor, stop burning up leather. Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, a new friend, a new guest. I'm excited for this. Kerri Lawson. 13 years in the fire service, 5 years with the St. John Fire District in South Carolina. Currently operating as an engineer of a Quint, which is a fun conversation because, hey, it's confused, and we're going to talk about that. But, Kerri, thank you for joining me today. This is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I feel pretty honored.
No, listen, I love when people say that, and that means the world to me. But truthfully, it's me having conversations with people that I want to get to know. And that's all this really is. And I think that's why it works so well for the listeners, too, is that it's just a transparent conversation between two people getting to know each other. And I think that's the fun part about it, because this job requires us to reach out and communicate with people. And I know that that's important to you. We were actually just talking about that before we hit the record button, about how important that is to communicate with one another, especially in the fire service. But this is cool for me because I love meeting new people. And your name was given to me by Steve Gillespie, who's a friend of mine who I got to know through other people. He's a friend of yours, and so on. And so when mutual friends say, hey, you should meet this person or have a conversation with this person, that means the world to me. And I blindly trust people that are in my life. And so that's how I operate. And so here I am. And I'm excited to learn about you today. It's going to be good. So let's talk about the Quint concept real quick. I mean, not an engine, not a truck. You're currently chauffeuring the Quint. I do want to talk about that real quick because we never talk about that, but two different disciplines under one wrapper. How do you know what you're doing and when you're doing it?
Yeah. Well, in our particular district, so I'm at a single company station, and so if we're running in our first due, we act as an engine.
Yeah.
And and so then if we're running like in our second due or wherever, then we're a ladder. And so yeah, just being prepared to do all the jobs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Because listen, when you're operating, right, it's one thing to be in the back seat and it's like, all right, we're going to be second due. It's out of our district, so we're going to the roof. We're an inside team. We're an outside team. It's very simple to break that down, right? But when you're chauffeuring, you don't know what you have until you turn the block. You don't know where you're positioning. As an engine company, you could probably do your water supply mapping before you get there, so you have an idea where your first due, second due hydrants are, what your obligations are, if you're laying in, laying out, all that cool stuff, right? That's the engine company. That's simple. Position, stretch line. It's easier to stretch more hose than ladders. Then all of a sudden you turn the corner and now you're the first due truck or a second due truck on a fire. Positioning matters. You're getting there a little later into the incident. We're no longer an engine company mentality. It's now a truck company mentality. So the game changes. So for the chauffeur, when you're operating as the chauffeur of a Quint, there's a lot being thrown at you at one time.
Yeah, for sure. Like, like for me, it's, being on your toes all the time. So, getting your pack ready in the morning, as well as, the truck and the pump and knowing that your gear is all ready, because you could end up, throwing ladders and doing truck duties, or you could just be standing by the pump and getting people water.
Yeah, the excitement of an engine company chauffeur is like the first 5 minutes, first 10 minutes is exciting, and then the rest of the run is as boring as it gets because you're standing there watching. And
exactly.
Yeah, I get that completely. So let's go for more truck work. More truck work's more exciting. The chauffeur gets to work when the truck arrives, which is very cool. How much do you enjoy it? I mean, you said being on your toes. You like being on your toes. Do you like the excitement of the job, meaning, that you don't know, as the chauffeur of a Quint company, a single company, you don't know what the cards are going to be dealt before you get there? I mean, do you thrive with that? I know I do. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am honestly in a slower district, and so I don't get a lot of that excitement. And so it does help being on a Quint, because then you get to do a little bit more and you get to practice and train in all realms of, the fire service pretty much. And so it's it is more exciting to be able to wear two hats, if you will.
Well, it offers more opportunity, right? I mean, not everybody could be turning out 15, 20, 25 times in a 24-hour tour. I mean, it's not how it works. The American Fire Service is built on companies that go nowhere to running out the door endless times, thousands and thousands of times a year. And that's the beauty of the fire service, is that it's so different depending on where you go. And I know that you're in a beautiful community, right? It's an island, I believe you're on.
Yeah. St. John's District covers 4 different islands. It's Johns Island, Wadmalaw, Kiowa, and Seabrook. And I'm currently stationed on Seabrook Island.
Sounds like a terrible place to work. Terrible place to.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
We also.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we also have a marine team, and so we have a couple boats, and the marine teams are stationed on Seabrook and Kiowa, and so I'm part of that as well.
Oh, that's cool. So what is that? What's that? Water rescue, things like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Well, that's fun. And the nice thing is, South Carolina, you don't get the cold water. See, we run cold water suits up here, and that not so good. Not so good. I could go for that South Carolina ocean breeze every single day. I'm a beach guy, so bring that for me. I'm in. But your life has not always been the beach, right?
No, it has not, actually.
So give me a little background about like where you come from, where you started, your fire service career, how that all became.
Okay. I was born and raised in Wyoming. Yeehaw.
Yeah, I'm in.
And Yeah, and that's actually where I started my first year of Wildland Fire. It was in Whirland, Wyoming for the BLM. And that was quite the like the shock. At first I didn't think I was capable of doing it, but I had worked for the Park Service for the YCC program the last 2 years in high school, and the summers, and I had a supervisor that was like, hey, you should try out for, or you should like apply for a wildland job. And I laughed in her face and I said, yeah, right, I can't do that. And she was like, yes, you can. You're very capable. And she just kind of motivated me. And so I put in an application and I took the pack test and I barely passed because she was like, you don't need to train for that. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was athletic, but I wasn't like in shape for the pack test. For anyone that doesn't know, is you have to wear a 45-pound vest, walk 3 miles in less than 45 minutes, and you have to walk. You have to have 2 feet on the ground at all times. You can kind of do a little trot, if you will,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but with my short legs, I'm only 5'3", and so with my short legs, I was cruising. Like I was like lunging
Wow.
around this track. Like it was pretty hard. And so yeah, I barely passed that. So I made it on. And that was back in 2004.
Okay.
And then I got hooked. It was like I don't know, I just loved being able to get paid to hike and camp outside, under the stars in a sleeping bag and work really hard and like um
Did you grow up that way? I mean, I got it. So everybody envisions Wyoming. Like, here's my vision, right? Is like every kid that grows up there is like blue jeans, horses, works outside, works with their hands, and so on. Is that far from the truth? I'm serious. I'm
no,
dead serious.
no, yeah, yeah, it's not far at all.
Okay.
It's
So
not as glamorous as Yellowstone,
yeah,
the
right.
the show,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, most people around Wyoming, like it's country, and so that does fit the description. I myself wasn't raised on a ranch or a farm, so
Okay.
I was just in
But you're
a
surrounded by it though, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So what I love, like I think about work ethic a lot. And I think about like different areas of the country where people, kids, when you look at like farms, and a buddy of mine owns a very big farm, and his kids are, I think, like 8, 6, and 4, and they all have a role on that farm already. Like they're all ingrained into the family business, and they understand that work doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. Like it's a 24 hours a day between animals and plants and harvesting. Everything they do as a working farm, the children are involved with, and they start them very early. And I think that has a huge pays out a huge dividend on like work ethic.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you have
100%.
that like growing up? Was that part of like your early years of like, just, I know you said you didn't grow up on a ranch or a farm, but like was that kind of like what you were I don't know, influenced by?
I definitely admired that
Okay.
lifestyle and that hard work. I had a different reason for um, my work
I
ethic.
got it.
I had really good mentors and examples, like with the Park Service and such. But I came from a family with a single mom who raised 4 kids, and so her work ethic
Hell yeah.
was pretty phenomenal,
I bet.
because she had to,
I
and yeah, I moved out of the house at a young age and became pretty independent, and so I had to learn my own work ethic,
Yeah.
and
Well, there's something to be said for that,
yeah,
because it's there's no coddling, right? I mean, it's
no.
people that have to forge their way and find their way typically are stronger for it, I think. And I can't speak to that myself. I mean, but I do believe that. And, I learned my work ethic through my father, who worked 20 hours a day with his own business, and watched that firsthand. And, I worked for him all those years growing up too, and so on. So like, I understood that. I think we all have our stories, and that's really what I love about the podcast, is being able to share those stories and learn about others, right? And so how did you find the Park Service? Were you like an outdoorsy type of person?
Oh yeah. I love the outdoors. Like
Okay.
that's my passion. And I found it so in high school, like the YCC program is Youth Conservation Corps, and they would hire so many different high school students each summer to help with like the visitor center grounds. Where I'm from is the Bighorn National Canyon, or
Okay.
sorry, Bighorn Canyon um, State Park, or like park or whatever was there, and so we would do like maintenance around the grounds and the boat ramps and the trails and stuff like that throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was a really intriguing job for me, and I needed to make my own money
Sure.
because I was independent.
Got it.
And so so yeah, I applied there and ended up getting hired on, and so I did that for two summers actually, and that
And then
benefited me a lot. So I was able to like purchase my first car and all that. So
That's cool. I love that,
yeah.
And then, so there was somebody there. Was it a female boss, right? I think that's important, right? That
Yes.
kind of empowered you to say, like, you should go try the wildfire, right?
Yeah, actually, Jen Schneider, she is one of my best friends till this day.
Fantastic.
But
Yeah.
yeah, she was a great influence in like getting me into the fire service
That's
and work ethic.
That's really cool. I mean, I love that. I want to come back. We're going to come back to that. But what did that wildfire duty look like for you? I mean, you did 8 years, I think you said, right? 8 years with wildfire, 8 seasons, I guess you should say.
Yes.
What was that like? I mean, when you pass the test, you get in, and then, I mean, a lot of females in wildland firefighting?
No.
No.
Yeah. I don't know if there are more or less females in wildland and structure, because it's hard to tell because the crews are so much bigger and different.
I
So,
get it. Yeah, totally.
um, but when I did it, there were only two of us my first year.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, yeah, so not a lot of females. Definitely a learning process for pushing myself to keep up with the males,
Okay.
and knowing what I needed to do to hold my own, and perform how I needed to be successful at the job.
What do you mean by that? Like, so this is like my oblivious, like, this is what I'm really interested in talking with you, is like to really understand like what you had to deal with that, right? Because I can't imagine, it's got to be challenging in and of itself when you walk through that door and there's only a few females to begin with, and it's typically a male dominated business, if you will, for lack of better words, right? The wildland, you're dealing with guys that are being deployed, right, for what, weeks at a time, right? And
Correct.
now
Yeah.
you're becoming a part of that fabric. It's got to have a unbelievable amount of challenges for you.
Yeah, I mean, not only just like the physical challenges, but like the mental and emotional. Like
Yeah,
when,
that's what I'm talking. I'm not talking about the physical
yeah,
challenges. Like the
yeah,
physical challenges to me is like, I firmly believe that if you train and work hard, anybody can do any job, right? Like I firmly believe that. I'm saying more of like that mental aspect that, you got to really wrap your head around that. This is, I would think that the spotlight is on you in a way, and that you carry a burden with you that most probably don't have to carry, because you're almost feeling that you'd have to prove yourself at every turn. Am I wrong in saying that? I'm curious.
oh no, you are
Okay.
absolutely right. And that's how we feel. I mean, I can't speak for every woman, so that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Is I felt like I was being judged
Mm.
right away because I was, I'm a small girl. I told you I was 5'3",
Yeah. Yeah.
and at that time probably 120 pounds, 125, I don't know, but so, and then, we're all carrying the same pack, the same tools, we're all walking the same distance, we're all doing the very same job. And so um for guys who are naturally stronger and a bigger build and stuff, that might not be as hard as it is for someone like me.
Sure.
And um so I just felt like they were just waiting for me to fail, or
Yes.
waiting, um like, just, debating on whether I could survive the season or not.
Mm.
And that fueled me. I'm pretty sure, like,
Love that.
I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm
Hell
going to
yeah.
prove that I can do this,
Hell yeah.
and so I got my butt in shape, and I did it. I made sure that I did it. I wanted to do what they were doing
Yeah.
and prove to them that I could be an equal, and it didn't matter my gender or my size or whatever. Like, I could do the job and do it well. And and from then on, that was my mentality. And I don't want other people to judge me based on my gender or whatever, because I do the job that they do,
Yeah.
and I do it well. And a lot of times I've been told that I do it better than some, and so it doesn't have anything to do with being male or female. It has everything to do with your mentality and your focus, and how much you want to succeed at the job,
You know how many guys
and how
suck?
you prepare for it.
Do you know how many guys suck at this job? Tons.
Yes, a
Tons.
lot.
You know how many women suck at this job? Tons. We're people,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the thing
Yeah.
that listen, I'm not claiming to be this most perfect guy where, everything is hunky dory, across the board. Like, my point is like, when people can do the job, we don't then see anything else other than they can do the job. And I think that's the most important thing. And what I was kind of like pushing you to talk about a little bit was very much that, is that you said, hey, if I'm going to do this, it's got to be done on equal terms, and I need to show these guys that I belong here, right? And that to me is what we all want. And it's not want in a selfish way. It's like, hey, you want to be here, then be here. Like, and that's, to me, I think, very important, right? Is like, that's that's a big distinguishing moment in, like, because there's a lot of guys, men, that are looking for an easier way. And it's not that you just like, I want to be a wildland firefighter, and this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
I love it. I mean, that's the way it
Yeah.
should be, no?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the challenges of all of that, right? I mean, you got to be focused. You got to, I mean, you're probably working, 10 times harder than the next guy, if you will, because you have something to prove more so than the average guy.
Yeah, 100%. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does that carry over? Like, so I'm just curious, like, going forward, like, does that carry over in everything that you do in regards to the fire service then? Like, have you in the structural world as well? And I'm not going to put, where you are today, like, is that how it was there? But like, just in general, right? Like, in the fire service, do you find that you're constantly having to prove yourself?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been a continuous mentality,
Yeah.
because I'm used to it now. Like, having to, stay in shape and to prove myself, and to go to my own trainings, and even if I have to pay for them myself or get my own swaps or whatever it is, like, taking that initiative and showing that I care, and that I can do this job and I can do it well.
Hell
and
yeah.
and and that is my mentality. And I know, like, when I started structure, that feeling came back to me, like, my first day in the wildland services, like, oh, are you going to be able to pull me out if I go down or whatever. I mean, can the next guy next to you pull you out if you're 300 pounds? He's probably going to need some help,
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like, and
100%.
right, and so that's another thing is going to these trainings and having other females train you on like different tactics and skills to make things a little bit easier, different kind of drags that we can use, or um, stuff like that. That helps a lot with, and so I that's another thing with your podcast, as you mentioned, getting out to so many people is find those trainings that have experienced females or mentors that have experience and stuff, and let them teach you things that they have come across,
I
because
love it.
I'm like 5 years is still pretty new in the fire service, and
100%.
especially at a slow district, and so I can always learn new things, and I always want to learn new things, and especially things that are going to make my job easier.
I had a great conversation with Jeremy Mathis, and Jeremy is a friend of mine. He works, he's down in Georgia, but he also is the director of training for Fast Rescue Solutions. And not only do they produce the Fast Board, but they also have this like unbelievable search culture and survivability culture about rescuing our own and rescuing civilians. And part of that is like down and dirty drags and things like that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is Jeremy's a smaller guy, and he said that he had to work harder to figure out different ways to adapt to what was being taught because he's a smaller guy. He's not 6'4", 250 with big arms, you know what I mean? And so, he's a smaller guy. And so he had to find ways to hack what was being taught, which makes it more realistic for him. And so, it's very much the same for you, is finding ways that you can do the job that works for you based upon, who you are and your body type. And that is, like, that's super important. And I love that message of like, go out and find women that are teaching and training and pick their brains and work with them. Right. I mean, that's just smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the references I'm thinking of is like Jenny Grima. She's like from Florida. I know
Yeah,
you
she's
know
a rock
her,
star. She's a rock star.
yeah, she absolutely is. And she's one that has a Rolodex full of tactics that women can use and such. And so like I don't know, I admire those experienced women in the fire service that can spread their knowledge and make other females feel comfortable in the fire service.
This episode's brought to you by Teledyne FLIR. Teledyne FLIR is the originator and creator of thermal imaging technology. In 2013, FLIR launched the K-Series camera for the public safety sector, in particular firefighting. They have created cameras over the last 10 years for every position on the fire ground. From tactical to situational, their cameras help us make the right decisions on the fire ground. So check out Teledyne FLIR, check out their product offerings, and engage them on their social media and ask them for more information and education in regards to their product. Teledyne FLIR is producing one of the best cameras on the market, and they're a proud sponsor and partner of the National Fire Radio podcast. So go over to www.flir.com and look up the public safety file, and you'll find the latest offerings from Teledyne FLIR. Yeah. No, I get that. I totally get that. What's it like for you? Do you love it? Like, do you love I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like, do you love the job? You love the fire service? You love that aspect of it? Because the reason why I ask is I'm sure you have been dealing with a lot of adversity, especially in your early days. And so, I wonder if that tarnishes your outlook on the overall fire service in general. And, it's kind of a pointed question. And I was just curious, it just popped into my brain. It's like, I didn't really deal with a lot of adversity throughout my career. And, I didn't have to truly prove myself in any other ways other than the average person. And so I just wonder, like, does that make you love it more, or does it kind of darken the outlook of things? Like, because I'm sure you've dealt with complete buffoons in your career. I'm sure you have. And I want to go down that road a little bit, because I can guarantee you that some of the people that might listen to this episode are probably those buffoons. Because people,
perhaps,
yeah, And so, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure I couldn't even imagine. I'm sure the storytelling you could give me is like, can you believe they did this? Can you believe a guy said this? A guy, like, I can only imagine because we're dumb, and a
Hmm.
lot of us are. And so, like, I wonder about like your outlook on it all. Like, I don't know. Do you love the job? Like, do you love it?
I absolutely love it. Like
That's
I
awesome.
can't imagine myself doing anything else. I've tried. Like I went back to school. I have a bachelor's in psychology. I went back to school to get my master's twice to do like clinical counseling or school counseling. And I just couldn't finish. I couldn't do it because I know that this is my thing, my
Yeah.
career. I know I'm a firefighter and that's what I have to be. Like
With
that I love it.
with that
And
being said, has anybody ever pushed you to the point of almost saying like, screw this, it's not worth it?
uh well, not I don't think to that point, no.
Okay.
But someone like for example, one of the worst things that I've heard was that I was an HR nightmare. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I just used that as fuel to just be better, do better. Like because yeah, you're the person that said that is the one that's intimidated by me,
Yeah.
not not the other way around. I
Yeah.
could care less what he says or thinks, because I know who he is. And and that just makes me want to work harder, be better, and be more proud of myself because I know that he's intimidated by me. And then I throw jokes around just the same with all the others. Like I I don't walk on eggshells. I'm just one of the guys, if you will. Like
Yeah.
so
No,
so I
yeah, I
just
get
make
it.
it comfortable and make it not awkward for people.
Well, I think once people can, it's, I don't know why it should be an issue. If everybody in that company, whether man or female, black, white, purple, green, blue, whatever religion you are, who cares? If you can do the job and do the job that's expected of you, and you have a way about you in which the culture is good, you're there for the right reasons, you're there promoting one another, then all of that bullshit goes out the window. And I think what
Yeah.
happens is when you find people that have an agenda, or you find people that can't be in tune with that, that's where we have problems. And I think when you go to busy firehouses where people are going to work and everybody on that back step has proven themselves to be a valued asset to the company, to the department, to the team, to the citizens they serve, all the bullshit goes out the window. And the bullshit, I think, only comes around when you have pathetic people that are looking for other opportunities other than what the job is all about. And I think that that's where we struggle with that. And unfortunately, I think it still runs rampant. And, I think I give you all the credit in the world because you're a brave person and you're very brave. And we need brave people in this industry. And for you every day to know that you got to be on your game and to prove these guys that you're worthy of being there and that you're either an equal or better. God bless you.
Hmm.
I think it's fantastic. I
Thank
really do.
you.
Yeah, I really
I
do.
appreciate
And
that.
I don't think it's right in this day and age for sure. Like, man, let's get over this bullshit of sexism and racism and all this bullshit, right? It's the
Yeah,
job. Like, we're
for sure.
firefighters. We're firefighters. We're not
Hmm.
we're just people. We're human beings. We're people that are here to protect people we swore to protect. Who cares what we look like or where we come from as long as they can do the job? That's what matters most, right?
Right. And just because they can prove themselves and do the job and everything doesn't mean that you can take advantage of them either. And and when they are cool and lax, like I think a lot of females have to deal with a lot of like sexual harassment
I
stuff,
bet.
and
I'm
and
I
and
bet they
that
do.
that is very much not okay. And as much as we want to joke around and be part of the family and be one of the guys, that doesn't give you permission to cross the line.
No, I know. I heard a crazy story not too long ago about a woman in the fire service that was dealing with some real hardcore sexual harassment stuff. And the way she handled it was unbelievable. I don't want to get into the whole story because, it's not my place to tell it. But the way she came back around and addressed it with the individuals that were involved was super powerful. I I don't think that anybody is deserving of any of that. And I think that there has to be a line, and I think that comes with maturity. I think that you find that a lot of people that go down that road of sexual harassment has much bigger issues at hand. Unfortunately, they put it upon others, right? And it's terrible. I'd hate to see it. I don't think anybody deserves it. And unfortunately, I can see where lines get very blurred very quickly because guys are idiots.
Right.
I don't know. I believe it. So yeah, it's just shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. There should be a mutual respect across the board. And ultimately, would you want somebody talking to your mother, your daughter, your wife that way? And if not, then you don't do it to anybody else. And that's just, life, right? I mean, come on, clean it up.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. With all of that, there's going to come struggles too for you. I mean, I'm sure that there's days where you're frustrated. I'm sure in your earlier years for sure that there were plenty of days of, because I know leaving the fire academy or leaving the firehouse, I had very hard days, and all I was dealing with was the job and trying to do something better, or I failed at something. I couldn't imagine compounding that even more so because people have a target on you or what have you. And so I have to think that weighs on you heavily too, especially in the earlier days.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to prove yourself and trying to um, be part of the family and be accepted because you have to spend your time there before you're part of the family before like they welcome you
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of work at the beginning, and then like continuous work to keep it up and not get laxed like some of the others, or follow someone's example who is complacent
Yeah.
and such. And so yeah, and then also like the hardest part for me is just like personally like I have a pretty short-term memory, and just needing those repetitions and stuff to be good, because I can't just read something and retain it.
Got it.
I need to work hands on multiple times until like before I feel comfortable.
There are many of us that are out there that can sympathize with you. I'm one of them for sure. So I get that completely. I need repetition in my life. I need to get it in my hands. I need to feel it. I need to know what it's about. I need to understand it, right? I mean, that's all things that help us learn for sure. I guess where I was asking and taking this to then was, I know that you're very passionate about mental health and so on.
Hmm.
And so I'm sure along the way for you, and maybe this is why you have a passion for mental health, was maybe probably dealing with some of the stresses and adversities that you were dealing with coming up through the job and so on. But where does mental health fall in for you? I mean, I know it's a popular topic for you, and I don't mean popular in a good way. I mean, something that's prevalent in your world and that you're passionate about. Where did that all come from? How did that become something that you wanted to be more involved with?
So, as I mentioned before, I do have a bachelor's in psychology, and I I try to go back to school for my master's in counseling. And so I do have a passion for that. I just couldn't see myself actually doing it as a career lifelong.
Yeah,
I need to work with my hands. I need to be active.
sure.
And I love fire. So, but I have, thought of like the whole like health and safety officer aspect of it, or the peer support group stuff. But so I've had my own mental health issues, if
Hmm.
you will, like, and experiences, and and it was actually not long ago that I noticed it, and that I wasn't really myself, and I was getting depressed and getting down, and oftentimes I've as I'm talking to people, it's not always calls that you're dealing with. It's not always PTSD or something. A lot of times it's family lifestyle, like home life, um or like influences, or maybe like outside influences. And so that was kind of mine too. And so I was getting pretty down, and had some dark days. Well, I was at FDIC last year, and fortunately, our district sent about 5 of us, and that was really fun.
That's great.
And one of the people that went was an officer that I didn't really ever talk to because I was intimidated by. But we were out one night. We decided to ride our little scoots to the bar and have a drink together. And for some reason, as we started talking and get to know each other, I told him my story. Like, I told him all this stuff, and I have no idea what made me come out with all of it. But so I told him how depressed I was and what was going on, and after that, he checked in on me like every week. He would text me or call me like, "How are you doing? Everything okay?" Like, and it meant the world to me that someone I hardly knew reached out and cared and wanted to know and asked. And I thanked him uh, very much. And I went to a mental health presentation. Forgive me, I forgot the name of it, but it was actually with Steve Gillespie. And after that, I like was crying through the whole thing, and I was like, oh man. So I went to the bathroom and I texted this officer and I said, I just want to reiterate how much you meant to me by checking in, and you potentially saved my life. So
Wow.
thank you very much. And he took it really well, and he was like, wow, that could be one of the greatest things in my fire career to hear. And so you just never know who's going through what or who you might impact just by asking or checking in on someone. And I was really grateful for that. And so now, like, my my uh meant like why it's so important to me is because I went through it. And so it's really important to check in on your people and talk about it and make it be okay to talk about mental health in your firehouse or whatever, and check on your people because they are family.
Yeah.
And it's important because we are seeing far too many first responder suicides or addictions or whatever may be. But yeah, it's important to check in.
Well, you somehow had the courage at a point that you probably weren't ready to do it, and then it just came out, right? And the situation, the moment, and that was your way of probably asking for some help. And there's
Yeah.
just so much to that. I wanted to ask you, you said it's important to dial in and know our people because you need to know what they're going through. Did people know that you were having these struggles before you? Was there anyone that was dialing in on you? Because what I think about is how much we're not in tune with our people as much as we used to be. Everybody's so focused on themselves these days that it's it's not every day that people are very familiar with what's going on with the guy or girl riding next to them on the rig. And so, like, were people dialed into you?
I don't think they were at that time.
Yeah.
I think I kind of hid it
Yeah.
fairly
And
well for a while.
that's kind of my point, right, Kerri? And that's why I kind of wanted to like just pick this apart a little bit more as to diving deeper on it. But that's the important thing is like if you're most people don't ask for help. They
Right.
they suffer alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we
And
how do
yeah.
we do better at that?
Um, have trainings, like mental health trainings, or, just kind of bring it up as a broad spectrum, just so it creates a safe space. That's what we really need. We need that firehouse to be a safe space so anybody can say anything around that kitchen table. It doesn't even have to be always about calls or about fire talk or trainings or whatever it is, or gossip about other people. I don't, whatever it is, but it can be serious stuff. It can be about individuals. It can, making that a safe space so everybody feels welcome and comfortable to open up and talk about it, normalizing talking about mental health and making it known that it's okay to not be okay and that you have support from your brothers and sisters. And I think that would make a huge impact.
I do too. I think it's an environment that's welcoming to allow for people to be vulnerable. I think what we don't do well is, or what, yeah, I think what we don't do well is allow us to be us, where there's always a guard up, right? And we're afraid of what others are going to think. We're afraid of what others are going to feel about us. And so we're not going to open that door. And I think, though, there's certain things that we could probably look out for, Kerri, and I'd love some feedback from you because I know you hit on it earlier, I think before we started recording. But there's, you can, if you know your people and you see differences in them, right? Like those are some things that we need to start keying in on, right?
Mm-hmm. Like if they stop working out on shift and when they've been avid, at like working out on shift or whatever, if they slow down or stop working out on shift, that's a huge sign. If they don't smile as often or don't crack as many jokes, that's one. Or if they kind of hint around about like not being happy at home or like something's not going well, kind of don't just say, oh, bummer. Like be like, hey, I'm here if you want to talk, or kind of ask another question, be like, so what is it about home that's not good? Or get those descriptive questions going, and just kind of tune in.
It,
And if they don't laugh as much, or some people do use laughter to mask it, but
yeah.
I mean, if you're in tune with your people, you can tell when there's subtle changes, and then just notice how those changes are going even more.
We
If they're not out doing the things that they love as much, that's a huge sign.
Yeah. Well, it's what do we always hear when something like this happens, right? It's I never saw it coming. I can't believe that's the last guy we would think that would do something like that. And and I sit there and you hear that quite often, and then you wonder, like, yeah, well, wow. I mean, it's maybe he was very good at hiding it. Maybe it's a burden he's been carrying his whole life, or something that and so on. So it can be very challenging. I think, for us to know our people, to dial into our people, and to see those subtle changes, hugely important. But I also want to stress to individuals that, like, if you're having those struggles, if you're having some struggles, we do want to help. We're brothers and sisters, and I know that's, it's, I'm speaking to it from an outsider looking in, because I'm not well versed in mental health. And I've talked about that on the podcast before. And it's not something that is, that I'm fluent with. And I probably need to do a much better job at really understanding it more, so that when we have conversations like this, I'm more in tune with it. But I'm just bringing an outsider's point of view of somebody that's not well versed, the average guy, right? I'm just the average guy in this conversation. And I do know how important it is that we need to focus on our people and get out of our own heads and worry about others. Like, I think we're so worried about ourselves and our heads down in our phone, and we're so worried about what we are and who we are, that we forget about the others around us. And we need to start doing a better job at picking one another up. And that starts with dialing in and understanding what's going on in their personal lives, so that we can be in tune with that, right? I think we'll be in a much better place. But for those people that are struggling or having stresses in their life that are causing them to have different thoughts or a change in their lifestyle and so on, reach out, say something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's none of us want to go through that, and we don't want that for you. And I know the one thing I was told about, suicide in mental health is that it's literally a physical pain. Like, they are hurting. These people that choose to go down that road are at a point in their life where they are literally in pain, and they're trying to, the act of suicide is relieving the pain that they're feeling. And
Right.
when you think about that, it's how can we alleviate some of that pain for you? We can make it better, through physical ailment. We can do medicine and we can do treatments and we can, treat physical ailments. The mental ailments we can treat too, but we have to be let in to help. And I just can't
Hmm.
stress that enough, that like this is what the fire service truly is all about, is not just protecting the citizens that we're sworn to protect, but also taking care of one another. We need to do a better job at that, but that also comes from the individuals that need the help. You need to ask, you need to say something, please speak out, please. I mean, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
it's
it
powerful.
relates to the fires. Yeah, it relates to the fire service a lot. Like those people need to call their own mayday.
Yes.
And then we can rescue our own kind of thing. And so,
Yeah, the problem
um,
is a lot of people don't sound a mayday when they should on the fire ground until it's too late. And that's the problem.
that's true.
Yeah, and it
That's
it
true.
parallels this conversation. And I think it's very much the same mindset about that, is that I don't want to call an early mayday on a fire ground because it might look weak or feeble. It might look like I'm not
True.
confident in my skills or abilities or position on the fire ground. But then on the other aspect of the mental health, it's the same kind of reasoning, right? I don't want to sound the alarm
Right.
because I don't want to burden people with, my issues or who I am. And that it can't be further from the truth. It
Right.
just can't be further
Like
from the truth. We need to
the
know.
fire service doesn't the fire service doesn't have to be that macho human thing anymore. That it it can we can be a family. We can take care of our own, um and it should happen, and it needs to happen, because it's mental health issues are happening far, far too often. And yeah, just seeing those signs, like if someone is out drinking more than they usually do or something, they're self-medicating probably.
Yeah.
And so that's where that taking care of that pain is happening. Or and ask them to go get some coffee with you or go have a drink with you, so then they can like tell you what's happening, so they're not drinking alone at home. And because
Yeah,
it only takes 1 second to make the wrong decision, and
you're right.
then it's all over.
You're right. And then it's a lifetime of, everything else. And, I just, yeah, we need to do better at this. We need to keep talking about it. We need to keep educating. We need to look out for our own. We need to share resources that are available so that people know. And now more than ever, those resources are more prevalent today than they've ever been. And we need to make sure that our people are comfortable and aware of that. And I think also company leaders, company bosses, officers, chiefs, departmental chiefs, HR, administration, we need to be sure that we're dialing into our people and we understand our people and provide them the tools they need. We give the tools on the fire ground. Let's give them the tools in life too. And if there's things
Right.
that we can offer to make our people better, to feel better, to be more present, to be, empowered, like then let's give those tools available. We have an obligation to do that for one another. There's no doubt.
Hmm. I mean, and I'm sure most every department has an EAP program,
Yeah.
and so that can be handed out more frequently, or reminded, send a little reminder or whatever.
Yeah, and it's people like you that I think are bringing this to light. There's a lot of people out there in the industry that are talking about mental health. I think what we need to do is talk about it, but we also need to get our hands dirty and roll up our sleeves and really make a point of making it a topic that deserves the attention it gets. And we need to relate that to the backstep firefighter so that they understand what that means. There might be times where people are going through things and they don't necessarily understand it themselves. And they don't understand what PTSD looks like and how that pokes its head out at certain times and then it doesn't at other times. Or, if you're coming home and you're more ornery than you've been before, or you're fighting with your wife more, or you're taking it out on your children more, like we have to educate our people to understand what the signs and symptoms are of it too. Some people are probably going through it super confused, not understanding what they're dealing with. And, and that's
Mhm.
part of that educational process too, is educating our own people about what these stressors look like and what mental health looks like. I think the stigma of it is less than it's ever been, and we just need to keep pushing that mantra forward for sure. So, but I'm glad we talked about that today, Kerri, for sure. And I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your backstory and so on with it. But this hour goes quick, doesn't it?
It sure does.
I love it. So what's next for Kerri Lawson? So life is good. Working in the firehouse, driving at Quint. Life is good. You've got yourself
Yeah.
in a good position. What's next for you?
Oh, I'm hoping to make it back out west,
Cool.
actually. Yeah, in my near future. My heart resides in Utah, so
Utah. Yeah, we
I,
didn't even get into that.
yeah.
I know you said Wyoming, and then you spent time in Utah as well. What about Utah that you like so much?
Oh my gosh, just uh everything. I mean, like the
Everything.
geography about it. Like
Yeah.
half of the state is beautiful deserts,
Yes.
and then the other half is beautiful mountains, I don't mind the snow. I like snowboarding and stuff like that, but they have, lakes and waterfalls and rivers, and then there's five national parks there,
Sure.
and I'm never bored there.
Mm.
And so I just love activity. I'm not a beach girl. I've I've had enough of the marsh life.
I believe it. I get it. I'm a beach guy for sure, but man, there's something about the lakes and the mountains. And I live in New Jersey, but the part of Jersey I live in, it's very green, very plush mountains. I mean, it's beautiful landscape here. 20 minutes from me is like, what everybody knows, Newark Airport and, New York City skyline. But, where I am, it's just absolutely stunningly beautiful. And I'm fortunate for that. And I have the beach close by, but I also have the mountains close by. So it's like the perfect space. But I can sympathize with you in wanting to change the landscape and check out different things and go back to what you know and so on. There's something about that. So I hope that you get there soon and you get to enjoy that. But I really enjoyed my time with you today. And I
Yeah.
want to say thank you. It was important to me to kind of dive in a little bit to get a better understanding on some topics that I'm not really well versed in. And I think that how we learn in the fire service is through examples and storytelling. And, whether we're sitting against the back bumper or the kitchen table, for you to share some of your story today, to talk about some of the adversities you've dealt with, as well as going down the mental health aspect and that road. These are the conversations that we need to be hearing and talking about. And when you're in a firehouse full of guys and there's not a female there to talk about any of this, there's really no way to educate yourself as to what some of that looks like as well. And so, for today, I mean, that's why this was special to me. And I really do appreciate you, though, talking about it. And I know it can't.
Thank you.
I know it can't be easy all the time. And so I do appreciate that. And I know I learned a couple things today. And if we can, I don't know, press upon people that are listening to this, to maybe change their attitude, change their ways, or look at something a little bit differently, then we win. And, thank you for doing that today. I appreciate you joining me today, truly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy.
Cool.
I had a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. Thanks so much. So hang right here. I'm just going to sign out the podcast, and I'll come right back to you, okay? Hang on one second.
Okay.
Cool. Everyone, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Another great conversation today. Kerri Lawson, St. John's Fire District in South Carolina, but our heart belongs in Utah. And what a fantastic conversation today about mental health, about women in the fire service. And I challenge you with this tough podcast today, with the tough messages that came across and the conversation we had. It's heavy, and I challenge you to take these heavy conversations back to the firehouse and talk about them. Talk about what you heard today, and it makes the job better. It educates us to be better, and that's all we want to be in the fire service, because when we're better, the people we're protecting are better. And, anyway, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.